Welcome, everyone. Welcome. To see people. Just going to wait a minute or two before we get started. Okay. Welcome. It is 4, so we will get started in this virtual world that we're in, and we'll let people roll in. We've got, we had over 200 people sign up for this webinar, so we're very excited to meet everyone here online, and we'll meet more of you as you join our call today. So my name is Moni Kim. I'm the Senior Research Officer, and I'm here with my fellow panelists, Maren McLeod and Hajar, who will be speaking about different aspects of REACH and as well as the personal student experience. And so as we share today, we will open the chat so that we can field your questions throughout the session. And I know many of you submitted questions in advance through our registration form. So thank you so much for that. We've curated them and we will have time dedicated at the end to also respond to those questions. A logistical note is that we've turned on closed captions. So if you would like to turn that feature on, you're welcome to do so for accessibility purposes. I will now welcome Maren McLeod, our Executive Director, to start us off for today.
Great. Thank you so much, Moni. And let me just echo Moni's comments in saying welcome to everyone that's on the line and that will be watching the recording later. We are thrilled that you are interested in learning more about the REACH Alliance, and we really do look forward to reviewing your applications over the coming months and getting to know you better. Great. All right. You can go to the next slide, Simone. Next slide. So as Moni mentioned, my name is Maren McLeod. I'm the Executive Director of the REACH Alliance based here at the University of Toronto, although my role is mainly in support of our 7 global university partners around the world. So I do a lot of our global engagement work that the REACH Alliance sees at its partner sites. That you can learn more a bit about that on our website, but I'll also share more details here in the next couple of minutes. As you can see from the slide, though, I am also an alumni of the program. So in 2016, 2017, I participated on the REACH research team that went to Jordan and studied UNHCR's biometric cash transfer program for Syrian refugees. So I come to the role with some sort of strategic leadership oversight, but have myself gone through the program. So I think sometimes that does help when we're making decisions about how to do things. We do have an alumni that's part of that conversation. Next slide, Simone. So the REACH Alliance was founded here at the University of Toronto in 2015, and we have since the beginning been supported through a partnership with the MasterCard Center for Inclusive Growth. All of our work is inspired by the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals. I suspect that many of you are familiar with the SDGs, but if not, we encourage you to check out their website and learn a little bit more about those goals. Our research as a result of that framework covers a whole manner of different social goods and services. So we have case studies that have focused on how do you get energy access to nomadic herders in Mongolia? How do you get cash transfers to the bottom quintile in Brazil? How do you get formal identification to folks in India? And lots of things in between. But do take a look at the UN SDG website to learn a little bit more about that framework. The REACH initiative is, in fact, a student-driven, faculty-mentored research and leadership initiative, and all of our work examines how critical interventions are reaching those that are hardest to reach. So I'm going to unpack this statement a little bit. because it's really important, I think, to have a real full understanding of what it is that we do here at the Reach Alliance. So as the statement suggests, it really is a student-driven initiative. So you will be in the driver's seat all the way from the beginning of your project period through completing a research ethics application, preparing for field research, which we fully expect will be happening again next year. You'll be in the field conducting key informant interviews. You'll come back, you'll be analyzing that data. You'll be co-authoring a case study report with a team of other student researchers and your faculty mentor. And then you'll be engaged in a number of different knowledge management and translation activities where we help to amplify and share the insights that you're going to be capturing through the research process. So during that project period, you are, as we say, mentored by a senior faculty here at the University of Toronto, and we'll tell you a little bit more about some of the mentors that we've engaged with. But we do really emphasize this is not a standard research assistant opportunity. And I know Hadra will share more about her own experience in this year's cohort, but we really do want to emphasize that this is a place where you will take initiative, where you will develop leadership and professional skills. And if you are looking for a pure research opportunity, we usually say that Reach is not necessarily the right fit for students that are looking for a pure research opportunity. Another thing I would like to highlight here is the leadership aspect of the program. So about 50% of the time that you spend with Reach over the course of the full term that you are with us is spent in professional skills development workshops, in performance coaching sessions with professional performance coaches and with key experts that we bring in. So the initiative really is focused not only on building your academic research skills and ensuring that you have that academic rigor and that you can bring that into your next sort of phase of life or next opportunity, but also that you are prepared with the professional skills to really get out there, make an impact, have a leadership role in relation to your next step. Last, I'll just highlight that the research has been featured in many leading outlets such as The Lancet, the WHO Bulletin, Stanford Social Innovation Review, BMJ Global Health, and lots of other peer-reviewed and semi-peer-reviewed publications. And then all of our in-depth case study reports are available on the website. So we always encourage applicants, read a couple of those case study reports before you start your application, get familiar with the process, get a sense for the type of projects and the type of problems that we look to study here at the Reach Alliance. Next slide, Simone. As an overview, the vision, mission, and objectives are outlined here on this slide. So our vision is investigating how to get important stuff to everyone everywhere. You'll note that important stuff is in brackets because really you can put anything into that spot. Cash transfers, identification, energy, the list really is quite extensive. And again, I encourage you to look at the case studies on the website to get a full sense for the scope of the work that we do. Our mission, and this really truly does guide all of our decision making and our strategic initiatives and plans here at the Reach Alliance on the staff side. We pursue the full achievement of the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals by equipping and empowering the next generation of global leaders to create knowledge and inspire action on reaching the hardest to reach. So we do this in a whole bunch of different ways, and we'll get into that in a couple of minutes. But really, I think having an appreciation for that mission statement will go a long way in terms of your understanding of what Reach is all about. I'll just highlight, we've had nearly 250 students across all levels of study around the world. So this is the University of Toronto, as well as across the partner universities that have gone through or are currently going through the Reach Initiative experience. We've published 40 case study reports and have about 15 currently underway at the moment. And as we've already noted, we do work across 8 universities. Next slide, Simone. This is a snapshot mainly to give you a sense for the global spread of our work. There's a couple of data points here. So first, the 8 universities that we work with are listed there on the bottom. So if you do apply and you are successful at becoming a Reach researcher, you're going to be joining a global network of student and faculty leaders from around the world. And you can really see those marked through the Black institutional icons on the map. The countries that are noted there in dark teal are countries where we have case study research either published or currently underway. So you can see we really do have global focus when it comes to our case study research, both in high income countries, middle and low income countries, so across the full range. And then I'm sure many of you will recognize those square icons with the numbers in them, and those do represent the Sustainable Development Goals. Many of the case studies, I think actually probably all of our case studies, are operating at the intersection of more than one Sustainable Development Goal, but we have, just for the sake of this map, highlighted the primary SDG of focus. So a lot of health focused case studies and a lot of case studies that focus around reducing inequalities, but really we do have research that covers most of the Sustainable Development Goals. So it's good in the sense that you can almost always find something that you're interested in to study as a Reach Alliance researcher. This is a snapshot of some of the faculty mentors. These are the folks that we are working with this year, but you can see a full list of our University of Toronto faculty mentors on the Reach Alliance website. We do, as we do with our student recruitment, look to bring in faculty that are representing a wide range of disciplines, faculties, schools, divisions. So you can see, we have political science, we have public health, we have social work, we have engineering, and everything in between. So we really do try and bring in these varied expertise so that they can best support you through the mentorship aspect of the case study research process. Next slide, thank you. Equity, diversity, and inclusion. This is something that underpins all of the work that we do. I really encourage you to take a look at our Equity, Diversity, and Inclusion Charter, which is linked on the slide, also available in the resources section on the Reach Alliance website. This charter was developed in consultation with our community. So that was our student researchers, our alumni, faculty mentors, staff, and as well as some other folks that are in our inner community around the Reach Alliance. And the process was facilitated by the director of the Anti-Racism and Cultural Diversity Office here at the University of Toronto, Jody Glean. The charter highlights a number of commitments and principles, and we have outlined those principles here on the right-hand side. But you can see this reflected in a lot of our work, and I know Moni's going to speak a bit more to this and as it relates to the application process. But it is something that is really front and center to the work that we do, and then we do just encourage everyone to read that EDI charter in advance of submitting your application to the Reach Alliance. Now I'm going to go through the three primary pillars that we offer if you're a student in the Reach Alliance cohort. So I think what we are becoming more and more known for is the leadership and performance coaching aspect of the Reach program. So each research team at the University of Toronto is made up of about 4 or so student researchers, 1 faculty mentor, and then as well 1 professional performance coach. So we work with a team of professional performance coaches, and again, the full list of coaches is available on our website if you'd like to take a look and read a little bit more about them. But each team works very closely with one of these coaches in 3 different ways. So there is one-on-one coaching that is offered and done with the performance coach. So these are things that are professional skills and leadership qualities and capacities and capabilities that you personally would like to further develop. And so the coach works with you to advance some of those skills and get some exposure and experience to those skills. The coach also works with the team. So that's the research team unit. So oftentimes the coach will observe a meeting, for example, and run a debrief after the fact. What could we have done better? What did we learn through that process? How will we apply some of those insights going into our next team meeting? We hear that is one of the most significant ways that students engage. Just after they go through the Reach experience, we hear many of our alumni actually take some of those principles and practices and apply them in other team settings in their professional work, especially those that are going into consulting. We've heard that's a very transferable skill. And then finally, a community of practice. So each month on the team, the lead role actually rotates. And so everyone on the team has an opportunity to be the team lead at some point during the year. So that doesn't fall to one person, and everyone is expected to take on that responsibility at some point in the year. Each month, all of the leads from around the world, so there are many teams, are brought together, and there's a community of practice session that's facilitated by our head performance coach. And that's where you'll learn from other teams that are operating in the cohort, either here at the University of Toronto or at one of the partner universities, and really be able to share best practices and insights about challenges or opportunities that you're discovering as part of the Reach researcher experience. The second pillar is around the skills development series. So this really does include a number of specific sessions that relate to particular research skills and tools, as well as some professional development sessions. So on the researcher side, we have a qualitative research expert coming in just a few short weeks to do a session with our researchers before they head into the field to do their primary data collection. We also have sessions on cartography and interviewing and a number of other research related skills, and really helping to support, for example, the research ethics application. So I know a question we often get is, do you have to have research experience coming into the Reach Alliance? The answer is no. Certainly having research experience does sometimes provide assistance to the team and can be a real asset, but the Reach Alliance is really designed in such a way that we can help you get some of those skills and help you get some of that practice through the initiative itself. On the professional development side of things, we have a couple of workshops, for example, giving and receiving feedback. This is something that I think a lot of people take for granted. Certainly we did at the Reach Alliance until a few years ago when we started working with a facilitator to do a half-day workshop specifically around giving and receiving feedback, which our researchers, I think, have found quite useful in terms of engaging with their faculty mentors, key informants in the field, and other senior leaders, such as on the Reach Alliance team here. We also have a great emphasis placed on communications, and I know our communications team is among the audience here today. So Emma and Philson, hello and greetings to you both. We really do place, as I say, a great deal of emphasis on communication, knowledge translation, and management. So our efforts here are to support student teams to complete the published case study report. And then also, if there is interest on the team, again, it's not required, but if there is interest on the team, our communications team is there to help conduct and produce other knowledge translation outputs, such as op-eds, peer-reviewed publications, short videos, and other infographic type materials. The last thing I'll highlight here is a bespoke series that we've put together, and this has been designed exclusively for Reach Alliance researchers, and it's a career transition series. Again, we bring in an expert facilitator, and she works through a number of skills development sessions, and then there is one-on-one coaching provided. We know all of the Reach Alliance researchers are in positions where they will have a leadership role. They will be making great impact in the world, and I think you can get a sense for that if you check out the alumni section on the website. But we really do what we can to help set you up in the best possible way to really engage in a meaningful way after you've finished your Reach project, whether that is through further studies, an additional degree program, or if that is in fact entering the professional workforce across public, private, and civil society sectors. The third pillar is the research process. I think this is what people most know the Reach Alliance for. So the research cycle is between 12 and 16 months. We get a lot of questions about that. Obviously, we know that is a wide range, 12 months and 16 months, very different. The reason being is that from recruitment to completing your case study report is about 12 months. That is when you officially complete your deliverables associated with the Reach Alliance. You've met all of your expectations with us, so long as that case study report gets published. And then beyond that, if there are team members that are interested in pursuing other knowledge management outputs, like I've just highlighted, then we do provide, as I say, that bespoke support to individuals and to teams to help facilitate that knowledge exchange and that knowledge transfer. So something I can highlight as an example of that is we have a partnership with Global Affairs Canada. So each quarter we have a team of Reach Alliance researchers that goes into Global Affairs and presents a series of cross-cutting insights based on their completed case study research. So we really are trying to put these insights in front of people that can do something with them, and so that they are really positioned for uptake. And so we do usually encourage teams to go beyond the case study report and produce other outputs. But as I say, again, it is not a requirement. It's an optional aspect of the program. In terms of how the case studies are selected, we are going to be adjusting that process slightly for this coming year. So Hadra, your experience, it might not sound that familiar to you. It's being adapted slightly. This year, though, we will be working closely with community organizations to identify case study topics, and then the research team will collaborate with the organization to identify the key questions that will guide the research process. That is also, of course, done in consultation and close collaboration with the faculty mentor on the project. project. So all of this to say the REACH case study identification process is largely informed by community needs and really aiming to have that research be useful and be ready for take up at the end of the project. The secondary research, what we mean by that is desk research, so literature review. That is the first step once you are placed on a case study team. So you'll spend a number of months reading everything that has been written about your case study project. It's an exhaustive and quite extensive period. I'm sure Hadra will speak to that in a few minutes. It's a critical part of the process. That secondary or desk literature review that you do informs the research ethics application that your team will write and submit. So it is really important for that to be an exhaustive review in order to be fully prepared for the research ethics application. After the research ethics application is approved by the Research Ethics Board here at the University of Toronto, and again, we do provide a lot of support to teams to complete that process if it's something that's new to you. The teams are prepared then to go into the field for primary data collection. So there's quite a bit of work that goes into the project between receiving ethics approval and being cleared for travel. So preparing interview guides, travel logistics, and those related activities, which is where the teams are currently dedicating much of their energy in the current cohort. But then teams do travel to their country of research focus, and they conduct key informant interviews with stakeholders on the ground. We do have a couple of Canadian-based case studies, so I'd like to highlight that as well. There are certainly many examples of a need to reach the hardest to reach here in Toronto and in Canada more broadly. So we just also like to emphasize that not all of the teams necessarily travel internationally. There is quite a bit of research that is done here in Canada as well. So I'd highlight the Operation Remote Immunity case study that is currently underway for an example of some of the work that we've done here in Canada. The teams, after they finish their research, they write a case study report. So this is about an 8,000 word report. As I say, it is co-authored with you and the rest of your team and your faculty mentor. Again, we provide a template, and lots of resources and actually professional editing and writing coaching. So you'll be paired with a professional editor who will work through that process with you and really ensure that you have all the data you need to produce a robust and reflective report. The last point there, again, just to highlight, it's that knowledge translation opportunity. Again, not required, but certainly something we support and support from a staffing perspective, and really do encourage researchers to take us up on those resources. This slide just highlights a couple of those outputs that I've already spoke about. So on the far left, you can see that's a peer-reviewed publication that was published in the BMJ Global Health last year by one of the teams. The second piece is a Stanford Social Innovation Review. This was a cross-cutting analysis of 4 different case studies that looked at how do you reach various hard-to-reach populations with cash transfer digital disbursement programs. Next to that, there's an article in the Globe and Mail about one of the cash transfer projects. Beneath that is a short video on women's police stations. And then to the far right is an op-ed that was published by one of our researchers. Specifically, their case was looking to target policymakers here in Canada. It was a Toronto-based startup. And so we supported her with media and pitching assistance to land that op-ed in the Hill Times. This is a quick highlight, a couple of photos from the 2022 REACH Researcher Conference. This happened in October at the Munk School of Global Affairs and Public Policy here at the St. George campus. We had partners from 6 partner universities, actually I believe 7 partner universities from around the world came to Toronto for this researcher conference. All of the REACH researchers presented their research and had an opportunity to engage with the broader insight community of REACH researchers around the world, and then as well a number of special guests. So the deputy editor of the Stanford Social Innovation Review was here, Global Affairs Canada was here, UNICEF was here. We really do endeavor to connect you and build your network with key practitioners that are focused on the Sustainable Development Goals. So it's a, we ask a lot of you outside of the research process, but we really do try and meet your expectations when it comes to building your professional network and ensuring that you land a job that you're really passionate about after you complete your time here with the REACH Alliance. I won't go into this in much detail. I will just highlight that this is a visual representation of the REACH research project cycle. So you can see we're clearly in the recruitment phase at the moment, with applications open until February 12th. Then the case study selection process will happen. As I say, that is done in consultation with community partners and your faculty mentors. Then you begin your secondary desk research, prepare your ethics application in order to go into the field. And then after your data collection is complete, you're doing your data analysis, you're writing that case study report and preparing that for dissemination at the conference, which is an annual conference, as well as a number of other knowledge outputs that we help you kind of put together. So now it's truly my pleasure to introduce Hajar. She is currently in our REACH researcher cohort here at the University of Toronto. And we're just so thrilled to have her here. I know she's got some great reflections, and it's always helpful, I find, her, at least when I was applying to REACH, to have a student perspective. And I know she'll provide a great one at that. So Hajar, over to you.
Thanks, Maren. This is great. I always love hearing these info sessions because it's such a reminder to myself to be grateful that I'm here, but also that you folks have planned so many great things and really just take advantage of all of it. So hi, everyone. My name is Hajar Sayed. I am in my 5th and final year at the University of Toronto Scarborough campus doing a double major in mental health studies and political science. So I'm on Team Philippines, and essentially my team is investigating a housing solution. So I'll speak a little bit towards it, but we're investigating a project called the Mangahan Low-Rise Building Project, which is essentially just a flood resilient housing project in Pasig City in Manila in the Philippines. So very quick overview. As I'm sure you all know, with climate change, we're seeing increasing severity and frequency of these natural disasters, including flooding. And so there are informally settled residents, so folks living in slums essentially in Manila, and they would be hit with floods occasionally. And every single time they would get hit, the government would take them from their community and they would move them outside of Manila. And obviously, as you can imagine, that's super disruptive to their livelihood and their well-being. So the community members decided we need to do something against this. We're going to form an alliance, and hopefully we can convince the government and work towards creating a more sustainable housing solution. So that's why you'll see APO-AMF. It's called the Alliance for People's Organization along the Mangahan Floodway. And they've actually developed this. The flood hit in 2009. And for the past 10 years, they've been developing a series of flood resilient buildings. So they've actually moved a ton of those community members into buildings. So they've really been self-sufficient. They've been advocating for themselves. So that's the critical intervention that my team is studying. And you'll see the research question is essentially, how did the APO-AMF, how did the Alliance for the community members mobilize to lead the development of their bottom-up resilience within their community? And the picture you see is just some of the folks in the community organization getting together, talking, discussing. They did a lot in terms of mobilizing at the grassroots level, but then also eventually speaking with government, impacting policy. Next slide, please, Simone. Oh, okay. This is my team. I guess I can speak a little bit more to team dynamics. So I'm in the middle, and like Maren said, there's typically 4 people on a team. So I'm the undergrad student. Well, not that there's really an organization, but it just happened to be I'm the undergrad student, 2 master's students, and then 1 PhD student. So you really get to work across different levels, and we all bring different expertise and skill sets. Next slide, please. Okay, this is the fun part. So let's see. I made the slide, so I really had to think deeply. What do I want to tell you folks? Let's see. The first thing really is that this is an investment in you. Whatever you put into this program, you will get out of it. It's super student driven. Everything that you're planning and you're doing, you are doing with your team. There's no one telling you what to do. It's very much not like a classroom. Think of something a bit more flipped. So it's an investment in you. That's the first thing. So if you get it, 1, be super grateful, but 2, really bring your whole self into this work. In terms of actual opportunities and access to opportunities, Maren spoke a lot about how REACH has been developed and a bit about the theory of change and what their mission and values are. So I'll speak a little bit more towards opportunities. You might have seen the application. Seems daunting, seems like a lot. Trust me, it's worth it though. The reason why they do it like this is really to get to know you. And I'm like, this is really long. This might feel like a lot. It's always so anxiety inducing, but it was so worth it to really sit down and think about myself, be self-reflective, think about the program, think about my own life and availability, and really be dedicated to the program. So you better believe after the entire process, if you get chosen, they are really making it so that it's really iterative. You've heard already, like the process is different than what I went through. So they'll get the feedback from current researchers, and then they'll take that and they'll change their program. It's not the same thing every single year. They're really trying to tweak it and make it better and like listen to researchers and what they need. So that's the first thing, just a side note, but the actual skills development series, it's really focused on capacity building, you know, so it's such an honor and a privilege to be in these small group meetings where it's led by experts, so either past students or, you know, professors and other people that are involved with REACH and other policymakers and practitioners who are leading these small group meetings. And I think the way that I like to think of it is based off what cycle of the research process you're in, REACH will try and develop some type of workshop or some type of skill development training. So for example, from like September-ish to December, we were doing desk research, we were doing literature review. So they brought in a previous REACH alumni. I think he was focused on like doing a PhD in economics, and he talked about his experience doing literature review, and he gave us tips and tricks. And then when we're focused on the REB process, we got to speak with other students to hear about the REB process. And now we're preparing for travel and qualitative interviews. Now we're gonna learn about cartography and like qualitative interviewing and best practices around that. So as you continue throughout the program, you'll get all these opportunities for skill development series. The next thing I want to talk about, sorry, is the coaching part of it. Maren described 3 different types of coaching, and I think those are all great. You get to work with a coach, one to help you navigate team dynamics. You know, you're going to be working with a plethora of people. You don't know how you're always going to get along. You might not always think the same way, and that's great. But you might run into issues, you might run into challenges, and you always know, like, your coach is in your corner. You can ask them anything. They're there to help the team and make it as efficient as possible. So coaching is very expensive, you guys. So I'm just going to say that right now. You have access to a coach, really use them. They know what they're talking about. So there's the coaching for your own team dynamic, but then also for your own career trajectory. What does it look like for you, you know, post-REACH? You could talk about those things. I kind of treat my coach a little bit like my therapist, but, you know, he's great for that. He really does help with all of those things and sift through, you know, the feelings and the experience of being in REACH. So definitely think that's a huge plus. And then the socials, we did say it's super, it's driven by students. So sometimes the students get to organize socials. Sometimes the REACH staff is organizing socials. It's really just an opportunity to get to know like the other cohort members, other staff, other alumni, other professors, everyone on the REACH staff. It's incredible, really. It's so mind-blowing to think about how global this network really is. So it's always fun. Now there's a lot more in-person things, so take advantage of that. In terms of actual benefits for you, I'm not sure about you, but I feel like since I got to University of Toronto in like second year, there was like a mad dash to get research experience. Everyone was like, oh my God, I need to find a lab, I need to do something. And I kind of fell into that too, and I got research experience and it was great. But this is different because if you want to get research experience, you go to a lab, go to a professor, be like, I'm interested in XYZ thing. They'll give you a little bit of work to do, and then you kind of, you know, not force yourself to like it, but you get involved in that research. This is different. This is, you're really there from the conception of that idea. You're thinking, what critical intervention does my team want to study, and how do I pitch that so that the rest of the cohort thinks it's a good idea, and that that idea, that case study is taken up. So you're there from the beginning all the way to publication. So you're doing the literature review, you're doing the REB around it, you're doing, you know, qualitative interviewing in the field, then you're publishing a report. You really are almost like an expert at the end of it. You realize how much you don't know, but there's so much that you do know, and you get to focus on that one specific area. And like, I'm coming from a health background, I didn't think I would ever be doing anything around climate change and SDG number 13, as opposed to like 5 or 3 or other things I was focused on. So it's really an opportunity to kind of go beyond your, you know, your little circle of expertise that you think you might be doing within undergrad. So I think it's a great idea just to be involved in that research project and like fully delve into it as much as possible. In terms of leadership development, Maren talked about how the teams are kind of structured, and I can speak to that a little bit more. Once you get into it, you kind of start in September, you have your team, and then it's like, now what, you know, like, what do we do now? Maren's not there, Moni's not there, no one's there. It's kind of just you and your researchers, the co-researchers, and your faculty mentor. And the faculty mentors kind of, they're just there. They're just there to help you, to support you, to answer questions, but you're really driving the conversation. You're setting up the appointments, you're setting up your team meetings, and you're figuring out what exactly you need to be doing. So you're leading those conversations, you're propelling the research forward, you're investigating different topics to study. So I think in that sense, sometimes you're the lead of the team, and sometimes you're kind of just there as a member, but a lot of times it's rotating and you're learning new things and you're talking to your team coach and you're always trying to get better in that sense. So I think it's a great opportunity just to get to know your other folks and learn yourself a little bit more. Like, how do I work best under pressure and how do I lead a team? And then finally, my advice point. One, everyone will tell you to apply. Just apply. I mean, sit through it, think about it, take a bit of time to really think about yourself and your own priorities, and then learn about the application and reach. So definitely apply. Do that. Just do that. But a little bit like some maybe tidbits of information that I think could help you and that helped me. Read previous case studies. Oh my goodness, I don't even think I would have made it past the interviews if I did not read those case studies. I still think about those case studies. Like, it was so insightful just to know what is REACH, what are they studying, what is a critical intervention. I have no idea. So just read those. It tells you a little bit about the case studies they've studied and gets you thinking about some other things they might ask you in the interview process. Other things I can tell you, let's see. Oh, reach out to other folks who are part of the program. Like, I still remember the two folks that I last year I attended an info session, and the two people that were talking, their names were Jonathan and Sita. They were so helpful just to tell me like what exactly is REACH, and I'm sure there's a chat box. I'll like drop my email if you want to reach out for anything. I think the entire cohort's great. Everyone is more than happy to talk about it. So is the REACH staff. But if you want to ask any questions or clarify anything, please feel free to reach out. I think it's such a great program. Could not endorse it more. Yeah, I think that's all I have for now, but I will drop my email in the chat box below. Thank you.
Wonderful. There's so much excitement. I'm excited for the next cohort already. And Hajar's halfway in the process. And I think she just shared it so beautifully about leading up to kind of the conversation about application. Why should you apply and how you should take the approach? And it really is, that's what our application process mirrors, is the ability for each of you to reflect deeply about who you are, your experiences, and where you want to go, and how the REACH process can provide an opportunity for you. So if we, the first question here is, who can apply? So our next slide here is, and really the only eligibility that we have is that you just have to be registered for the full academic year, fall and winter. So if you're graduating next June, you'll be registered for fall and winter. So it's all good. And it doesn't have to be full time. You can be a part-time student. The only requirement is that you're registered for the both academic terms. So, and that's across degree levels, undergrads, across campuses. So anybody that's affiliated with U of T as a student for the next academic year is eligible. And there was a question about what preferences we have if we have undergrad or graduate, and we don't have a preference. We're really looking at fit, and we're looking at diversity of perspectives on degree levels and fields of studies that are represented. So we have a holistic assessment process in which we consider fit from various factors, in which I'll review as well. So in terms of, so who is an ideal candidate? And this is really the key part of the assessment, whether you're an undergrad or graduate or doctorate student, we're really looking at the traits that make an ideal REACH researcher. And these are the traits that we have, one, known from experience from past researchers about what kind of traits contribute to their success, and two, from our research about what are the skills that are needed in the workforce and in the global kind of competencies, so that as our mission is to develop leaders that are going to be able to have an impact on the global scale in accelerating the SDGs. So these are the skills that are actually required and are good foundations that we want to build upon for each person. And so they're all listed on our website. Please take a look at that. There is one question in which we will refer you to these questions. And part of the reason is this is a co-curricular activity. This is not currently for course credit or a paid RAship. There are different courses for that. I'll talk about the course credit in a second, but for on the officially, it is a co-curricular activity. So you are doing this in addition or alongside your academic requirements. So Hajar is in a degree program. She's finishing up in her last year. And while she's doing her coursework, she's she is also making time to go to her team meetings, be part of all the planning of her research for REACH, and participate in all of our events and workshops. So this is kind of like the equivalent of actually a course in terms of the number of hours that is required. It's not all in one chunk, it's in chunks between all of these different activities, but it can be about 5 to 10 hours and sometimes more, depending on what the deliverable is. For at times when there's time sensitive deliverables, it can be more. So that's why the ability to prioritize becomes a really important feature for students, because there's a lot of juggling that you got to do. And then as well as being a team player, and the team player means not just a good group member that you can do your own little work on your own and then come together in the team. Actually, the teamwork in REACH is actually a lot more integrated. And so that's where the team coaching really becomes a key support, because you're looking at sharing the load for every single milestone in a project instead of just dividing and conquering the work. It's a very different understanding of teamwork. And of course, an effective communicator, there's a lot of communication involved and strategic thinking about just problem solving. If you are someone that really likes a challenge and likes to take on new areas of learning, this is a program that you will really thrive in. And of course, action oriented, there's a lot of, as Hajar said, this is a student-led initiative. So it is a student's driving. So unless you're really motivated to take action and responsibility for the task, we're really looking for those that are going to be driven to do so. In terms of our next, what's the process? Okay, so yes, there's lots of questions, and this year we did change up the questions. So if you've applied last year, you may notice there's a few different questions. So where we're really looking at getting to know you is your leadership skills, your traits in terms of what are the past experiences you've had working in a team, what past experiences have you had in managing tasks and responsibilities and taking initiative. And then we're also added a question about where do you want to go and wanting to see how that fits in with your future. So that's kind of how the questions are. There's a limit. So you don't write a full essay, please just short 250 words maximum for each of these questions. And then there is required documentation. So in terms of the next slide, what you need to do in addition to answering the questions online is submit your resume, just 2 pages. 2 is your unofficial transcript. So if you're a first year student, just please submit whatever grades you have for U of T. And then if you don't have more than 5, you can also submit your transcript from your previous university. So we will accept any of your grades from the last year. 3, what's unique about the annotated transcript, as someone in the question asked, is that this is a place in which you can tell the story of who you are and your courses and your interests through your transcript. So we ask you to select 5 courses from your transcript and tell us about what that tells us about you, whether that's your personal passions or interests, or the story of what you learned from taking a course, or if something happened in 1 year, you want to share what that journey has been in your transcript and why the grades are so a certain way. We provide an opportunity for you to share that. And that's part of our understanding that this is not a GPA cutoff program. We're not an academic program where we're looking at GPA. We're really looking at ensuring that looking at your courses, that you are taking a variety of courses, but second, that this is a co-curricular program. So it means that students have to have a certain command and ability to manage their coursework that won't negatively affect their grades if they take on more work. So we're looking at different bandwidth and ability, but also we can learn so much about who you are by, if you're a science student and you took a course on ethnography and you got a low grade, but you learned so much from it. Like that's kind of the place where you can share and tell us some of these stories about who you are. And then a co-curricular activity list is the last thing that we ask. There's a form that we've asked you to fill. Just let us know what you're already committed to or you're interested in. This is part of our understanding of what you're already doing in other co-curricular spaces and how Reach will fit in there. So the deadline, the key thing is February 12th. Midnight. So you have until Sunday on the 12th to submit your application. And just make sure that it's all in one go. So you can have it open for as many hours as you need to, or copy the questions in a Word doc and copy them in, paste them in, and have your one pager for the PDF all ready. So that can be a quick thing. In terms of what happens after. So you'll be asked to participate in an optional student equity survey. As you've heard, we do have a equity charter in which we are wanting to understand who applies to Reach, who gets selected, and really assess our recruitment efforts and to ensure that we're really reaching, even the hardest to reach at U of T is my motto. So we're wanting to, and this survey really helps us understand that. So please, it's not required, but we are strongly encouraging everyone to apply because this helps us to understand our measurements and our efforts. Then after you've submitted all your application by February 12th, we will assess them. We've got a holistic process where multiple people will be looking at all the applications. And then those that are invited to move forward will be having interviews in March. So it is one round of interviews this year. We are cutting down, as we've heard from our researchers last year, that our 3 rounds of interviews in previous years was pretty rigorous. And so we've heard that feedback. And so that's why we've added some new questions written so that we can get to know you better in different ways. And then there'll be additional instructions about how to prepare for the interviews. So those notifications will go out by the end of February, as we've said. And then hopefully by the end of March, we will have a thorough assessment process, and we will have identified by the beginning of April who all the researchers are. And then there'll be an in-person onboarding process in April. We know it's exams, so we'll do it within a time, but we just want to capture that moment to do things in person before people fly back home or have summer internships and disperse over the summer. So there's a commitment to be involved over the summer, but it's not necessarily in person as we've had it in previous years. But you will begin the work with your teams over the summer. But it will be virtual and a lot more flexible in terms of time commitments, and anything that we do host, it will be flexible to evenings, as we acknowledge that there are people committed in full-time work or placements as well. So our full critical path, some of you are like, what happens? So please follow those web pages. We've kind of laid out what the next steps are once you become a researcher and are onboarded. So at this time, we have time for questions. I know lots of questions have come in, and we've been answering them along the way. So we've kind of curated some of the frequently asked questions that some of you have submitted before. And then what I'll do is I'll read through some of them and see if perhaps Hajar might be able to answer some of them based on her experience. So one question was about time commitment. So Hajar, how about you share a little bit more about what does it look like if you're a Reach researcher, the time commitment, and what kinds of activities are you engaged in?
Yeah, for sure. So I saw the response around 5 to 8 hours. Think of it as like another course that you're taking. For every hour in lecture, you do 2 hours outside of lecture to prepare or to study for that course. I like to think of it as that way. I think 5 to 8 hours is a pretty good way of thinking about it. Some weeks you're not doing 5 hours at all. You're doing like 2 hours where you're just checking in, or you're texting over your Slack channel or whatever that may be. You're meeting for 1 hour online. Other weeks, depending on the task that you might have. Like we just submitted RAB in December. So leading up to that, we were online a lot and doing a lot of back and forth and like messaging and things like that. So I definitely think in times of, when you have a deliverable right upon you, then you might be doing a bit more. But for the most part, I think it's fairly manageable with a full course load. I think, just manage your time, prioritize it. I think reach out when you need help. What's coming up type of thing. Nothing sprung up on you. So yeah, I'd say 5 to 8 hours. is a good way to think of it for sure.
Okay, great. Hajra, can you, I will I think there's some confusion about the annotated transcript. I will re-explain it. Can you share what you shared in your annotated transcript?
Yeah,
Do you
for
remember?
sure. For sure, I do. I like pour over
Okay.
that. I'm like, this is gonna be my life, not my life story, but a way to, yeah, like a lot of internships and things are like GPA cutoff, you messed up first year, whatever, you're straight to the rejection pile. That is not this. They really emphasize that, and I think they actually look at it holistically. Like, who are you as a person? So I thought of the annotated transcript as a bit of like a storyline. I came in first year, no idea what I was doing, had a couple of marks that weren't the greatest, kind of embarrassing to look back on, but like there was a story behind it, and like there was something that I learned from that. So that was one grade that I explained. I'm like, oh, it wasn't the greatest, it was in first year or whatever year it might have been, but you explain it and you talk about why you're speaking to that course, like what was important to you, how did that affect you, things like that. A few other courses I taught, like I'm studying mental health and political science, but I took like a biomedical ethics course, and this is really cool. This speaks to like my future career choice, I think. Or another course was like clinical psychology. I realized, oh, I definitely don't want to go into clinical psychology. That was a bit of an epiphany for me. So think about, like, really sit down with your transcript, I think, and like the different courses, and maybe even pull up some course descriptions and think about what was interesting or new or different for you, and why do you want to speak about it. Like, have a point to it. They're really short descriptions, but I really think of it as like not an additional chore that you need to just check off your list. Like, really think about it, sit through it, and just think about what you want to explain and how does this set you apart from other students, or what makes it interesting.
That's a great explanation. So I've just put in the chat what it is. You select 5 courses from your transcript, and then you can tell us what those 5 courses reflect you as a student, reflect you as a person, reflect your passions, whatever story it is that you want to show what you learned. Or you could do it collectively, maybe 5 political science courses or whatever it is, or you can pick, each individual course. So that we will leave up to you. Now, some of you are first year students, so you're asking what can I submit my high school or previous universities? And the answer is yes. Please use whatever previous year grades and courses you took if you don't have 5 at U of T to share with, or 5 that you really want to elaborate on this year. And the details are that the co-curricular list, I think some of you have asked, it is not your U of T co-curricular record. Sorry, it's called an activity list, and it's part of the required documentation. And that is actually a form that we have built here, and it's just fall term and winter term, and you just put all of the clubs and roles you already have in a number of hours you're committed to, and that's just part of the application process. So it's a form that is on our website that we ask you to fill out, and that is both in terms of you've already committed or you're thinking about adding or joining a club next year, and taking on 2 hours of work a week or whatever it is. So you can tell us kind of what you're already committed to. Other questions is, will I get paid for this program? And the answer is no. This is an unpaid research program. What you do get out of the program is travel expenses to do field work. So as a researcher, you get to travel to your location of where your case topic is, and the flights, the accommodation, the expenses and logistics to carry out your research in country is all covered by REACH. So you do get that experience of, and if it's global, you get to travel globally. If it's local, it's here. But whatever it is, you get the opportunity to do in-person field work. And the second thing that researchers really get out of it is the authoring your own case study. So as Hajar said, this is a process where students lead from the beginning to end. So you get your name to be on that as a co-PI on this. It is not the supervisor, your faculty that is getting primary credit. It is the students that are driving the process, of course, supported by faculty, but you get to author your own case study. You get to have a field work experience and expenses covered for, and all the professional development opportunities that are provided in which we cover the expenses for as well. Okay, other questions? I'm just reading through here. Is this a fully in person? So I think that's an interesting question that we're asking, as we're now a full year kind of into our programming post kind of all the lockdowns we've had over the 2 years. So the answer is, as much as possible, all the workshops are in person at U of T. So that is one of the feedback that we've received from researchers, that they really value just the ability to be in the same room with each other, because they rarely have that experience to be able to network together and chat. So we're bringing in person. We've done all our events and large group meetings in person. We do have researchers that are joining us from other universities from around the world and have hybrid for those researchers. And depending on your team meetings, those team meetings can happen in person, or those team meetings happen virtually. So there are different meetings in which are in person and different meetings that are online. So that's dependent on the team and how the logistics are worked out for that. So the other questions we have here is, I don't have research experience. Am I still eligible? And I think Maren touched upon this, is that we're looking for people that want to grow in their research experience. You don't already have to have all this experience. This is why we offer it. We're here to be able to give people the experience who don't normally have international global exposure and the ability to lead their own research. This is what makes REACH unique, is that undergraduate students who typically don't get the chance to lead and design their own research and work with other students from across U of T get to have the experience alongside with graduate students who typically do have this. So it is, yeah, so that's that question. Are there funding initiatives in place? So the funding initiatives involve the expenses for the field work is all covered. So that is covered by funding that we've received. And then we also are working with our researchers to apply for CIE travel grants that are offered to U of T students that are participating in travel abroad programs such as REACH. Maren, I saw you pipe in. Did you want to say anything?
There's a couple of questions, Moni, that I might ask you to speak to.
Okay.
So when do the students hear back after they submit their application?
So everyone will receive a response by February 26th is what the website says on our website. So, and on the application form, we say that. So by the end of February, everyone will get a response in terms of the paper applications. And then those that move on to get an invitation for interviews will be notified at that point.
And then Moni, can you, again, there's a couple more questions about the annotated and the transcript. Can you just clarify if they need to submit a transcript and an annotated transcript?
Yes, we ask for both. The unofficial transcript, so whatever it says on your ACORN. So if you only have one term, actually there should be 2 terms. I know the winter grades won't be out yet, but just please put those in. And then your annotated transcript, it should be a description with words in which you're describing your courses. So there should be the typical transcript and then an annotated transcript. Those are 2 different requirements.
Great. Will this be a rolling application? Will it be the first that apply or the first to hear back, or will everyone hear back at the same time?
Everyone will hear back at the same time, but we are assessing as applications are coming in. So that helps us just logistically, to assess in batches versus all 200 or 300 applications, who knows how many we'll receive this year, all at once. So if your application is ready, and please submit it. There's no need to rush right now if you're not ready. But if we are assessing applications on a rolling basis, but everyone will be notified at the same time.
And then I'll just jump in and answer this question. Do we have an opportunity to write an article for publication in journals, so a peer-reviewed publication in addition to the case study report? And the answer is yes, you do. Many of the teams do go on to do a peer-reviewed publication, although not all of the teams do. This decision is something that we leave to each individual research team based on their interest to do that extra work. For those of you that have worked on peer-reviewed publications, you will know that it is a lot of extra time. And so sometimes teams don't feel like they can commit that to the project, but I would say that many do, and you can see the full list of our publications on the Reach Alliance website. There's also a question here about what if we don't have any co-curricular list or club at UTM? Moni, I don't know if you want to take that.
If you're not part of any clubs or sports or anything, you don't have to, you can put 0 on that. Like it can be an empty list. It's just what we're trying to get a sense is, what are your time commitments that people already have for clubs, work, RA shifts, because we're looking at bandwidth and time commitments. So as you know, this is an intensive process in which you need a certain flexibility in your schedule. And part of that also helps with coordinating times to meet with your fellow team members. So if you're so busy and you don't have that much space in your schedule, it becomes very hard to really do Reach successfully. And I think Hajar will let you know that the number one issue with teams is not actually if they get along with each other, is do they have time to meet? So that becomes a real pain point that we're just trying to assess based on bandwidth.
And I think the follow-up question here, which I think is a very important one. So will having no other extracurriculars or limited extracurriculars impact their application?
No, not at all. We're not assessing what, like in terms of academic programs, what you're involved in and why and all that. It's just a matter of seeing how full your schedule is. So if your schedule is 40 hours a week, you should reconsider doing Reach, because that will hurt any of your even regular programming. So I think that's the key thing, is just it's a reflection piece of like looking at what you're already committed to or wanting to commit to, and seeing, is there space in your schedule to do Reach? That's the reflection piece for that.
So in terms of research, I can jump in on this question. What kinds of topics can you study? So as we've already stated, all of our research topics are focused around the hardest to reach and the sustainable development goals. So the best place to look for that would be to the case studies that are on the Reach website. So you can see the full range of topics. So anything that is within the sustainable development goals and that is also focused on a population that is hard to reach is within scope for the Reach Alliance. But as we did also say, this year's case studies are going to be determined in collaboration with community partners. So some of those projects will be the scope, the general topic will be predetermined. And then there's a question here: are there opportunities for folks to stay engaged or be engaged with the Reach Alliance if you're not selected as a researcher? So we always encourage people to follow us on our social channels. We do always have work study positions that are posted, and there will be several of those being posted for the summer and then the fall winter as well. So if not selected as a researcher, that's certainly something that you could also apply to. Beyond that, we sometimes do events and share our research in different sort of seminars and workshop settings. So you could always, again, I suggest following us on social media. That's where we post all of our opportunities are on our social sites.
And what I would say is, if you don't get selected and you're still a student in future years, please apply again if this is something that you really feel passionate about. We know there's several researchers every cohort that didn't get selected in the first round when they applied early on in their academic careers and applied later, building on their skills and really and being able to speak to that later. So it may take more than one try, but I would not let you be discouraged by that.
I can jump in here. I actually applied twice. The first
Yeah.
time I got into and I didn't make it after that round, So I think it really speaks to like, if you're gonna be here, apply anyway. Just follow them. I'm like, I know they're gonna post about it in like February. Let me follow them for the next year, like leave a calendar reminder for myself. So yeah, I think don't be discouraged if you're still here, keep applying, just think about it and just be as reflective as possible. And they really just want to see who you are as a person. So yeah, don't despair.
That's great. That's great. It's true. It's true. We do. And there's multiple people that look at it. So it's not just one person making a decision. We really are trying to be fair, and our alum are part of the process of reviewing, and as well as, staff and faculty. And so it's all a very holistic lens that we provide. Okay, so we're at time. So I just we'll stay on if there are any burning questions. Some of these questions are, do we need to talk about our research topics? So it's not necessarily a specific question in the application, but if it relates to an answer that is there, you're free to ask to talk about that. And if we apply for the February and we're accepted, how quickly do we start working? Well, the selection process will happen in April. So then from there would be the expectation to join the onboarding sessions and then start working in teams and being available virtually over the summer. How can I maximize the chance of being selected? That is a good question. If I knew, I think this is why we do what we do here, is to give you all the information to help you feel confident and to really encourage you, and really just maximizing the chances. You see what the traits are, see what our mission is, and see how it aligns with who you are. So if you can speak and align, I think that's a maximizing that you can do. And as Hajar said, is be as reflective as you can be honest, and really look and be able to communicate that in your application. Okay, well, thank you so much, everyone, for joining us. This was a really engaging session. So many great questions. We really are excited to receive your applications. Please reach out to Hajar. We'll send an follow-up email with her email attached that you can contact her. And if you have further questions that are individual to you that you can't get answered from our FAQ site or on their website, please be in touch at our reachalliance.monk at UToronto email, and we will make sure to get back to you. Okay, thanks, everyone.
Thanks everyone for being here. It was great to meet you all.
We can stop recording, Simone. Yeah, thank you.
Great.
Okay, thanks, Hajar. Thank you so much. That was so great.
Yeah,
Did it bring back memories?
So much.